Welcome back to episode 2 of What's the Deal with Insert Lifter's phenomenal technique or phenomenal lift, where we do some technical analysis and then we try and get some inside scoop from the lifter themselves, him or her, on why they do what they do, how they do that, and how they kind of got there. So currently we're 2 for 2 for getting the elite lifter or that lifter in question's inside scoop. So episode 1 was on Anton Plesnoy's clean, and episode 2 is on Gabriel Sincraian's jerk. So we got some, on episode 1 you would have seen that with Plesnoy we got some kind of translated conversation over DMs and Instagram. It was great insight. Luckily today though, got on a Zoom call with Gabriel and we got some really good questions going on his split jerk, so they'll be in part 2 of this. Part 1 will be a technical analysis of his split jerk.
Easy clean.
And you get it over his head and hold it. Up it goes, up it goes, up it goes.
So I'm not going to waste time. You probably already know what Gabriel's split jerk looks like. It is a phenomenal lift. So part 1 of what is kind of unique or interesting about Gabriel Sincraian's split jerk is the fact that he jerks from fingertips and not from a full grip. So someone like a full grip would be, if you look at like Ilya Ilyin or Miso Asana, both of these will jerk from a full grip with their hand, so that gives you a nice shelf and it gives you a lot of control over the barbell. However, Gabriel jerks from his fingertips. Other lifters who jerk from their fingertips are Ruslan Nurdinov or Kianush Rastami. So jerk from your fingertips kind of gives you some pros and cons, right? So typically why most of us jerk from a full grip is that we get a lot more control over the barbell and we can direct the barbell a little bit sooner. However, what this can possibly do is engage your arms too early and kind of mess up the timing of the split jerk, which is an issue actually a lot of people have. So it kind of dampens the effects of your legs, because as soon as you engage your arms, the lift slows down a little bit because you are limited by the weakest muscle essentially engaging in the split jerk, which would be your arms in comparison to your legs. So if you imagine the upper body is a conduit for transferring the power from your legs into the barbell. So leg strength and leg power is incredibly important for split jerks. But if you are engaging your arms too early, you're losing that full effect from your legs. So one of the benefits from jerking with your fingertips is that you disengage your arms, or you limit the amount of engagement your arms get. So if we have a full grip, we can have too much of a tension in our arms and this can engage them too early. However, if we jerk from fingertips, we've got a nice shelf. Our arms are very loosely securing the barbell on our chest, and so when we dip and drive, we're getting the full power from our legs, or as much as possible, transferring up through these. And then once we have correct timing, and if you possess that ability, your arms are then engaged. And it is very important to use your arms in the split jerk, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Arm strength and arm positioning is very, very important. However, they are the last thing to essentially engage in the barbell. So if you think about it like this, jerk from my fingertips, I dip down, the legs are transferring up through the body, the power we're generating from our legs as much as possible, and then as the bar is passing above head height before lockout, we're pushing down underneath the barbell. After the initial acceleration phase or the initial momentum gained by our legs, the bar travels up and then our arms engage, and as we push underneath the barbell, we're accelerating again and our arms are locking out as much as possible. One of the issues, however, with that is that last section of the lift. So a lot of people will probably actually get a lot more momentum from a fingertip jerk from the rack, but this time between this last kind of third section of the lift, where your arms are going from a loose kind of direction around the barbell, a loose facilitation around the barbell, to a full grip overhead, is very, very difficult to time, and most people can't do that. And especially with max or super maximal weights, Gabriel is lifting nearly 2.4 times body weight, so it's incredibly difficult to balance. So I encourage you later, give it a go later in training, try heavy fingertip jerks and you'll see how difficult this is. You'll feel like you get a lot of lifts, you'll feel like your upper body is in a better position, but it's much more difficult to actually time that lift correctly. If you can do this, in theory, you could end up with a faster bar speed and potentially heavier lift. So one of the more interesting things about Gabriel's jerks, however, one of the more difficult things that I wouldn't encourage people to do fully or practice with. So the next kind of interesting thing about Gabriel Sincraian's split jerk is actually the quality of his dip and drive. So one of the more interesting things about his dip and drive is Gabriel dips quite deeper than most lifters would do. So one of the issues with dipping deep is that if you don't have the sufficient leg strength and ability to generate enough force and quickly enough, it is very, very difficult to turn around that direction. So the lower you get, the greater the force on the moment arm, which is your femur. The further down you go, the harder it is to reverse this direction and come back up. So you imagine that's your knee and your hip. The further down you go, the harder it is to transfer this. It's also, this deeper dip also makes it harder to brake before the dip and drive and then turn around the direction. Because as you dip deeper, you build up more speed, and this is more difficult to turn around the direction. You still want the deep dip, obviously, to generate force and momentum. However, too deep and too fast is very, very difficult to turn around. You'll end up with a pause in the bottom, and then very, very hard to maintain a maximum full, a powerful extension. We do know that Gabriel has incredibly strong legs. He's a very, very powerful lifter. He's a lot of fast twitch fibers. So he takes advantage of these, probably north of 270 front squat if he ever maxed out. So he takes advantage of this deeper dip to give himself time to use the full power from his legs. Now often you'll see lighter lifters, so maybe below 70 kilos, won't actually possess enough absolute leg strength, so to kind of dip deep. So even in terms of relative leg strength, they're very, very strong. At a certain stage, absolute force is just absolute force, and we don't see, for example, 60 kilo lifters with a 200 kilo front squat, clean and jerking 170, just won't be able to generate that sufficient force with a deeper dip. So we'll often see they'll have very, very fast twitch fibers, they'll have high rate of force developments, and they'll dip and drive shorter. So their dip will be very short, but it'll be very, very fast, and then they'll use this skill to jerk sufficiently. Another interesting area about Gabriel's dip and drive is that Gabriel's balance is very, very important. So a lot of times we don't really think about balance in the jerk, but balance is actually incredibly important when you think about it, okay? Because the barbell is actually pulling you a little bit forward. So if you imagine the barbell sitting on your chest, you're standing up straight, the barbell needs to maintain very essentially over your midfoot. So sometimes we hear people say, dip through your heels. And this in itself is not a bad cue. However, you don't want the barbell over your heels because this will drive the barbell too far back. But if you don't dip in your heels, for example, what can happen is the bar can move forward over your midfoot or further front of your midfoot, close to your toes, and then you're off balance. So as weights get heavier, this window for how far forward, backwards the barbell can travel gets smaller and smaller. So when you're looking at something like north of 2.5 times body weight, you essentially have less than 50% of the area of your foot to be able to maintain balance while still maintaining a successful jerk. As weights get heavier and closer to triple body weight, this area gets much, much smaller and requires a huge amount of precision. So if you watch Gabriel's dip and drive, or dip in particular, you'll see that his hips travel back. He's a strong arch in his lower back. His hips move back, and then his knees move forward. And so what this does is keeps that barbell traveling straight down. So if you're essentially exclusively knees forward, what will happen is I'll drag the barbell too far forward out over your toes. You'll see that kind of hip tuck a lot of amateur and intermediate lifters end up with, and this will drive the barbell too far forwards, and essentially then this will pull your whole dip and drive forward. So you'll see with Gabriel's dip and drive is he's nice and stacked, hips go back, knees go forward, knees don't go too far beyond the toes. Now I don't think you should worry about how far your knees go beyond the toes as long as the barbell is staying over your midfoot. But in action, most of the time, this ends up looking like the knees don't go too far forward. So your hips go back, knees go forward, really strong dip and drive, and you can use your lower body to the maximum efficiency while still staying in a good balance. Finally, the third most interesting thing and the most, high quality aspect of Gabriel's split jerk is the actual split jerk position is a very, very high quality position. So his shin is slightly behind perpendicular. So a lot of people will kind of teach perpendicular, or we'll see graphs or we'll see diagrams saying aim for perpendicular to the ground for your front shin. Not a huge fan of that. I like to see a little bit further behind because a perpendicular shin can sometimes allow for potential forward application of force, so you can end up your knee too far forward, whereas a little bit rearward incline can be a little bit better. But if we look at Gabriel's, it's either perpendicular, a little bit behind perpendicular, but it's never front, it's never beyond perpendicular with the ground. Back leg is bent sufficiently, so he's got a nice transfer of forces meeting each other in the middle. Barbell is behind his head, and he's in a phenomenal position for a split jerk. However, just to point out in general, worry more about your dip and drive than your split jerk position. So too often people worry about their split jerk position and not enough about the actual dip and drive. So it's a lot easier if you are faster and you are applying a lot of force with a good dip and drive than to fix a good split position or fix a bad split jerk position. It's a lot easier to make more lift if you're faster and stronger with that dip and drive than trying to compensate with a good split jerk position but a pretty shitty dip and drive. So I would say take note of his dip and drive. That is a big thing here to take away from use of his legs. You don't have to dip as deep as Gabriel. It doesn't look quite deep, but it is deeper than usual. So a lot of taller lifters will actually need to dip deeper to generate more force because they will need to drive the barbell higher due to the nature of being taller or potentially having longer arms. But for most of you, a short dip and drive will probably pay dividends to your split jerk. Faster dip and drive. Too often people dip slow and dip too deep. However, play around with both of them, take note of them, be aware of which one it is, and then you can decide for yourself. I know, for example, Gabriel talks about he teaches people until you get to like 170 if you're clean and jerking, if you're going for big weights, to go for a deeper dip. And then by that stage, you can probably determine for yourself which is better for you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed a conversation after this with Gabriel. A lot of interesting things about the jerk and how he got to where he was and how he got such a good split jerk. If you enjoyed these, please let me know. Please leave a like, please leave a comment, because these give me a bit of clout then when I go and approach another lifter to show them how the good series is and how much people like it. So that way we can keep getting good lifters. So if there's a lifter you want to see me analyze, just leave it in the comments and we'll try and make it happen. Whatever it is, probably next, if Miso is able to give me a few minutes, I will try and do his clean, or in particular his hang clean, if he's got a little bit of time for me. So hopefully that'll be next in the series. So enjoy the little conversation with Gabriel, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, of course. I have some cues or something that I think when I'm performing the split jerk. One that I think right after I'm going up from the clean, it's to have a good re-rack of the barbell, because this is important to have a good position to keep the barbell on my shoulders. I try to keep the barbell in my hands, and also I point my elbows out. I have my elbows a bit pointed up, and this is something that I need to do every time. And also it's important to make the clean very good, because if the clean is a bit in front, or if I get up from the hole much harder, it will be hard to do a good re-rack and a fast re-rack, because also it's important to do this very fast, to don't spend too much energy when you're doing this one, if you understand. And please. Yeah, of course, because here is the base. If you don't have a good position with barbell on your shoulders in the front rack, if your position is poor, it will be hard to have a strong split jerk, because from here you start, and you need to have this one very good. That I like to think at this one, it's to keep the barbell on my shoulders, elbows pointed up, and also to have my legs straight, because I see many lifters here that they stay with knees a bit bent. But if you do this at higher weights, you already load your quads. You stay in like an isometry position, and you will get tired much faster than you stay with a straight position to have knees and hips in same line. This is important. Oh yeah, when I do the split jerk, that I think what it's in my head, it's to push a lot down with my legs, because the dip when I go down, for beginners also it's important at the dip when they go down to keep the barbell on their shoulders, because if you do a too fast dip, too aggressive, the barbell will go up from your shoulders, and that drive it will crash on you. I don't think at this one, because it's going, I can control very well now. But what I think it's to use my legs. And when I say to use my legs, it's like I was doing a jump with straight legs. Go down, and when I push up, I put a lot of the force into the ground, and I can deliver the barbell straight up, because when I focus to put a lot of strength into the ground, to push like I'm thinking to push the ground down, the force is going up. You understand? The barbell is going up, and I don't focus in that position in drive to use my arms. I only focus to use the legs, a lot of legs. I'm also very powerful here, and I use a bit longer dip to use my legs. And this is also important when you are at beginning to learn to use the legs, to do a bit longer the dip, because I see most of the beginners try to replicate the split jerk of advanced athletes, that they are having already big weights on the barbell and they do a very short dip. But they can do this because they're helping of the weights of the barbell. And when you have a lot of weights, the barbell with balance, and the short dip will help you. But when you are at the beginning, you need to properly do the dip, and you need always use a long dip. No, I don't think at this one, but what I think it's what is helping me is because I have also the short legs. My legs are quite short. And when I do the dip, my knees are not passing too much the toes, only a bit there. And because I have a bad internal rotation at my shoulders, my knees are always staying a bit in the sides. But this has happened also when you are above parallel, because when we are above parallel and when we go down, our femur does an external rotation, and when it's happened that the knees are tracking, the knees need to go a bit in the sides, and they're tracking the toes. And also I keep my toes a bit in the sides, because my internal rotation at hips, it's not so great. Yeah, of course, this is the second thing that was helping me a lot after improving my front rack position, because when I was before Rio, 2015, 2012, 2011, I was missed a lot at split jerk, and what happened because my legs was too strong and my upper body was a bit behind, because I was not working properly at this one. And for me, it was a big change when I improved my split jerk, when I improved my strict press, when I improved my strict press from 90 kilograms to 115. Already because I was included weekly the strict press in my programming, and I was seeing a very good improvement in my overall split jerk, and I was not needed to do anything new in my technique, only because my arms was getting stronger, and you learn also to push. The split jerk was overall better. Yeah, I use a lot of push press, but here at push press, a lot of people, they do the mistakes in the low back, because when you do the push press, you don't need to have your low back arch when you drive the barbell up. You need to have your low back neutral and try to keep also your core activated. And if you do this at push press, you will transfer also in the split jerk. And if you are doing a split jerk and your low back it's extended or hyperextended, automatically your back foot, it will be straight. And when your back foot it will be straight, it will push you in front all the time. And that's why if you keep your low back, your pelvis in a good position, and neutral, back foot always will land in the good position and a bit bended. No, for me, it's when I do the re-rack, I try to keep the barbell in full hand, but because of the mobility, I don't have a good front rack mobility, and my lats and are a bit tight, and because of that, it's seeing that I keep my barbell a bit more on fingertips, but it's feeling like I'm in full hand. And these two are both okay. I recommend that beginners, amateurs, to keep the barbell more on fingertips, because when you keep the barbell more on fingertips, you cannot use the arms in the drive, and you need to focus to use the legs, and then you will properly learn how to do the drive. And after a while, after you practice these 3-4 years, you can change it to see if it's going better to keep in full hand, but it's important to learn properly the drive. I was included weekly split jerk, but not necessarily from the rack. I was lucky to do a power clean or a full clean, and I was doing more reps at the split jerk. I started with 3 reps and build it up to I was able to maintain a good form with 3 reps, and it's quite hard to maintain because for an example, when I started the preparation, I was able to do 3 reps with 140 kilograms, and when I was finished, when I was before Rio, I was able to do 3 reps with 190 kilograms. So it's big, because when you start doing something weekly and you have a continuity, you will progress a lot. But this was my main exercise that I was doing for improving strict press, push press, and split jerk. And I was not using split jerk from behind the neck, for example, because I was not having problem in my overhead mobility to keep the barbell more back, or I was not having problem to keep the barbell well in front rack. And this is recommended for athletes who don't have a good front rack, and to see the difference how it's from the back, and to better improve this one. But any exercise is good. Is good to add to improve. A good one that I use, and I was used also, is to pause in the split jerk for 2-3 seconds when you're doing, and to don't rush, to feel the movement and to recover all the times with front foot, and after that with back foot, and to work at weights that they are feeling good for you. Yeah, I was doing when I was young, when we started the preparation, when I was convoked at the national team, but for youth. Every summer before training, we was warming up on the stadium, and we was doing stairs. If you know the warm up with stairs, you need to jump, you need to walk, only go up down on the stairs. And when we was included that type of training in our before training in warm up, I was feeling all the time a good improvement in my trainings. And we was doing this type only in the summer, because winter was very cold and we was staying in the gym. But we use also good exercise that I was using for my split jerk, and I was using from when I was very young, was box jumps. But we was doing more on the bench, because we don't have 20 years ago in the gym box jumps like they have now on CrossFit gym. So we was jumping on the table or on the bench that we are rested, and doing also vertical jump, broad jumps, any kind of exercise, because this plyometrics exercise that will help you, it's to reach your full extension, knee, ankle, and hip in same line. And also before when I was young and I was practicing the split jerk, our coach was put always to do footwork drills between sets, and and before split jerk we was doing the jumps to better learn how to use the drive on the split jerks and to reach the full extension. Yeah, exactly. If you see also, I don't know if you notice, but are some athletes that are even at competition, especially at the clean and jerk, right before they enter to the barbell, they do some vertical jumps. For that is, to reach the extension, exactly.